Welcome to the November meeting of Central Jersey Electric Auto Association. Yesterday was election day, so I understand that lots of us has full head of what's going on and when do we get the results finally. Even though we don't have the answer today, we have two speakers. April Bolduc, President of Electric Auto Association, and then Director of Environment and J, Doug O'Malley. Without further ado, I would like to give the hand to April. April, she has been involved with the Electric Auto Association for a number of years, and I'm sorry that I don't have that number, but she became president this year in the summer. And so I thought it would be a good opportunity for her to tell us what's new with the Electric Auto Association and maybe her vision about where she wants to lead us. So I guess I need to give you access so that you can, do you have slides?
I do have slides.
Okay, I make you co-host, how about that?
Let's see if I can. All right, can everyone see my screen? And can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Great. So thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is April Bolduc, and president of the Electric Auto Association. And first I thought I would just kind of give you just a little bit of information about myself, kind of how I came to be president. And so I have actually been working with the Electric Auto Association probably since about 2011, when I was at the local utility here. So I live in San Diego, and I was on their electric vehicle team. And so we really started the electric vehicle team with one kind of product for EV drivers, which was an electric vehicle time of use rate. And then grew that into a $45 million EV charging program. But one of the key things that we really needed was to have engagement with our local community. And so for years, we worked with the Electric Auto Association because the Auto Association's members were so knowledgeable about electric vehicles, could actually reach neighbors, community members to talk about the benefits of driving electric. And what has always struck me about the Auto Association is that every time that an Auto Association member did show up, they were so absolutely as knowledgeable as we were at the electric vehicle team at the utility. So it became a great partnership. I think over the years, at one point, I was on the electric vehicle team for the utilities. I was doing their customer engagement. And there were certain years where we were holding 100 EV events, and it was really exciting to see that grow. For a few years in a row, we had the world's largest electric vehicle event, because we actually rented out our local stadium for National Drive Electric Week. So it was just great because our Electric Auto Association members, of which I was one, we would also host our tailgate park, which was so great because while you do have the dealerships who are such a key part of this, well, you do have them doing ride and drives. The Electric Auto Association was over there really talking the real talk. And that's what I think, all of us love about this group. So since then,
April, I need to interrupt you a little bit. If you are transitioning slides, we don't see the transitions.
I haven't transitioned yet. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. and my slides are really going to talk about the Electric Auto Association, but I just thought I'd give you a little bit of background first. And then 3 years ago, I actually left the utility and opened up my own company to focus on transportation electrification. So I work with states and utilities across the country, basically doing the same thing that I was doing before. And so over that time, the board had reached out, said they had an open position. I became not just a member of our local chapter, but for the national chapter, was voted onto the board, became treasurer, and then recently became president. So I'm just super excited to be here and happy to chat with you all. And then the reason why I have it just basically on with this view is that when I when I do the full view, it switches my whole computer screen around, and so I just need to learn how to do that better. But,
no problem.
yeah. So just to talk a little bit about the Electric Auto Association, and I'm sure that you all know this, but if there are any new members that are watching, it's a grassroots organization. It's all volunteer. We're North America's leading nonprofit that accelerates EV adoption. And I don't say that lightly, and I think it's really important to understand that because there are a lot of electric vehicle nonprofits out there, and they're doing amazing work. And what's really great about the Electric Auto Association is that the reach that the Auto Association has. So mobilizing 100 chapters and thousands of volunteers actually throughout the globe. Not just here, in the US, which is fantastic. We have our Canadian neighbors up north who have just some phenomenal chapters that they're growing there. And then again, the whole, I guess, my love for the association is it's really that neighbor to neighbor talk about electric vehicles and about the benefits of it. And really the chapters, those 100 chapters are the heartbeat of the association. They're the ones that really make it tick, which is really exciting. You may know that we were started in 1967 in Silicon Valley, and that was when we had, the big gasoline shortages, and some engineers got together and said, hey, we want to go electric. So that's where the Electric Auto Association started way back then. And our chapters sell thousands of vehicles every year. And so while we may not be able to track that specifically, we know that to be the case just because of the work that they're out there doing. And the Electric Auto Association works as really the boots on the ground for a lot of other nonprofits that are, maybe they're focused on EV policy, or maybe they're focused on certain types of the EV industry. It's that boots on the ground where we really get that momentum. And then just talking a little bit about our reach. So 100 chapters, we have 1,250 members, but we have 25,000 email subscribers, with 27,000 Facebook followers, and then we have thousands of volunteers. So this is just for the Electric Auto Association, the national organization. So, that's exponential when you start talking about the New Jersey chapter, Central Jersey chapter. I mean, any other chapter is really exponentially growing that reach. So you can start to, kind of think in your mind what type of reach the Electric Auto Association really has. Here's a quick snapshot of where our chapters are. We're also in Canada, Mexico, Virgin Islands. We do have a chapter in Taiwan, believe that or not. And then the types of members that we're the EV curious, the new EV drivers with renewing leases, and longtime EV drivers. And so that's what, a huge value I think that we bring to regions. And just diving in a little bit deeper about kind of the national organization and what they do to support chapters like yours. So just talking about finances in general. So we provide, fun things like doing the taxes so that each chapter doesn't have to open up a separate nonprofit or separate bank accounts. We provide that nonprofit status. We do all the accounting and we do all the banking and expenses. We also provide online tools, so emails through MailChimp, video conference, and training to use those tools, because as we know that now with this COVID world, we've all transitioned online, and it's been amazing to see, especially chapters like yours. And Stan, I know that you've really taken the lead to make sure that that education doesn't stop. We also have a new website that also has our current events blog. And I know that the Jersey chapter has really been participatory in that, which has been great. And then just over the last year, we've had 10 new chapters join. So what that means is that these communities are raising their hands and saying, we want to be part of this movement as well. And so I think that's really important. This gives you a snapshot into just the Jersey chapter's blog posts that they've done. And if you haven't been to our website, please check that out, electricauto.org. In the search bar, you can type in New Jersey, and then you'll see these blog posts pop up so that you can learn more about what your colleagues are doing and how you're growing in New Jersey. This gives you a snapshot of just what some of the other chapters are doing in the region. And we feature them every week. So for the Jersey chapter, we've actually already featured 3 articles, which is fantastic, and we want you to keep those coming. We also do a feature each month on My EV. So if you have a particular story about your electric vehicle that you want to share, please send that to us, because we love publishing stories about that. We also have a monthly EV myth that comes out from the former president of, or the former vice president of the Electric Auto Association. He's doing a column now called the Monthly EV Myth. And so it talks about myths about range or environmental impacts. And those have actually been one of the highest visited stories that we have. We also, talk a little bit about vehicle to grid, and then just from a national standpoint, we're trying to think of how do we bring to the forefront, the idea of EV equity, because while our focus is electric transportation for vehicles, not everyone can afford a vehicle, and so it's kind of like electric transportation for all. So for trucks, for delivery trucks, for you name it, for buses, for school buses. I mean, in my job, that's what I think about every day is the electrification of passenger vehicles, but it's really moving beyond that. One of the projects that I worked on was the West Coast Clean Corridor Transit Initiative, and we did, we were looking at infrastructure from the Canadian border down to the Mexican border, working with all the utilities along the Western seaboard as to how we go about doing that, and how do you think about electric semi-trucks when you know that they're not going to be here for 4 years, but you also know that when you do any type of infrastructure upgrades, whether it be a transformer or a substation in general can be up to 4 years in planning. And so, it's getting these transportation electrification minds together, just like the ones at the Electric Auto Association and just like our chapters. We can really do amazing things, and it's really about these regional efforts. How do we take the learnings from your chapter and then grow other chapters with those learnings? I think that that's really important. I think kind of, my whole point in all of this is that the Electric Auto Association and the every chapter that we have really has a lot to offer when it comes to growing transportation electrification. And then which, leads me, I can't go without talking just for a second about the election. And I think, no matter what the results of the election are, that for the Electric Auto Association, you know, if it goes one way, we still need to be moving forward as quickly and fast as possible. If it goes another way, we still need to be moving forward as quickly and as fast as possible, because as we know, electric vehicles are coming, and the technology is just plain fantastic. And that's something that you can't get around. And I used to always tell, you know, my friends, when I first got my electric vehicle in 2011, it was the BMW Active E. There were 700 in the country, got to lease it for 2 years. And, you know, people would almost look at me like I had two heads. And why would you do that? Why would you get an electric vehicle? And, you know, these are probably a lot of the same questions that you're asked all the time and that you have to answer all the time. And I think what's interesting is, you know, would you rather drive a flip phone or would you rather drive a smartphone? Because it really is in the fun and the technology. And then the side benefit is all these environmental side benefits. So I'm just really excited to be a part of this. And I, of course, wouldn't be doing my job to say that if you are not a member, please join, because your membership supports the Jersey chapter and all the work that they're doing, and all of the money that we get in from our members does go to education and outreach efforts and supporting all of our chapters. So that's really it for me in a nutshell. And I'm happy to take questions. And I know, Stan, you had just also asked kind of what were my thoughts on, you know, the future of the association and where it's going. And the one thing that I can say without a doubt is that there is no better time to be a part of the association than today, because the things that we're supporting the chapters with is only going to continue to grow. I mean, I think it's grown exponentially over the last couple of years. And I, you know, I think it would just be fantastic that the Electric Auto Association and even your, you know, any local chapter name, that if that's rolling off of people's tongues in your neighborhoods, like, that's exciting.
April, thank you so much. I cannot agree more with your words. And I wanted to also highlight that all the funds that are coming from the membership are in good use, as you pointed out, because we have this Zoom, we have a mailing client, we have insurance for events. I think you didn't mention that. And
good point.
Yeah. And the flags. I mean, this is fantastic. You know.
Yeah.
Unmute yourself, Alex. So this is great. Questions? You can unmute yourself. Whoever wants to ask, and just go ahead.
Do you have any, aside from the videos that you mentioned, have you had any other great examples of other chapters doing outreach during this weird COVID time that we're in? Like, yeah, kind of cool ideas.
Yeah, actually there's been a couple. So depending on what kind of the day or event, I've seen chapters doing drive-in movies. So you invite everyone to a local drive-in, but everyone stays in their car. And you know, if there's any way that you can team up with a local drive-in, or if maybe with your city or your municipality, maybe they want to do like an outdoor electric vehicle viewing, you know, would also be another idea. But there's been lots of sort of like electric vehicle parades and things like that, where people are staying in their cars, because I know it's hard when we're all, you know, we're probably all on video conference calls all day long, a lot of us. And so it's great to see you know, these kind of exciting things that are taking place that are, you know, still following guidelines of your local county.
Absolutely, and we did try, you know, to arrange for a drive-in theater.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
Well, no, we did not execute that idea. We did have that idea, but we didn't want to purchase or rent the equipment because we don't have budget for that, right?
Right.
So we were trying to look into who can offer that, and you know, there were some organizations, but they wanted to offer a viewing of movies that are volume movies that they can, you know, get everyone, not just a handful of EV enthusiasts. And you know, that's one thing. And second thing is, how do we actually guarantee if it's for us that we have enough people with electric vehicles to come and actually watch? And I know that in Long Island, there is a Long Island group, and they have a Wardenclyffe, I'm not sure about the pronunciation. It's a Tesla museum, Tesla Science Center. And they do have the ability to do drive-in movie theater, but it's too far. And there is also another drive-in theater in South New Jersey. And you can actually see on the satellite image Deptford, or where is it? And it's just too far.
Okay.
For us, it would be good if there are some local people who are within, let's say, 50 miles. You know, it doesn't make sense to make a long distance drive just to see a movie. You know, so
yeah. I mean, one idea would be to just partner with another organization. So, for example, maybe Stan, if you and I reached out to the local utility and asked if that would be something that they would be interested in hosting, but because I see your point, it's really, you know, it should be geared toward kind of the whole theme, which is electric vehicle drivers, and so you want them to come, but then you also want to leverage whatever partner that is, leverage their marketing team, if you will, which is always good to do. That's why if it's a local municipality or a utility, that could be a good idea. But I'd be happy to, you know, reach out to your.
It's a good suggestion, because I didn't think of utility as a partner. I made some attempt to contact our PSCNGs, the major utility in New Jersey. But I just, you know, they have some website when they talk about the sustainability stuff, and there is no contact information.
Okay.
No whatsoever, you know.
Yeah.
And then the only number that I can call is the number from my utility bill. At which point they say, "What?" You know.
Yeah, I co-chair the Smart Electric Power Alliance. They have an EV working group. So you may know them. They focus a lot on solar, renewable energy, but they have an EV working group, and lots of utilities are members. So we can coordinate on your local utility.
Actually,
and out through there.
One thing that I didn't explore yet, we are members of ChargEVC. It's a New Jersey organization that has the policies bias. They actually were the organization that was instrumental to put together the New Jersey state bill, the EV bill. And we are associate members. And among their members is actually PSCNG.
Oh, perfect.
And they send us emails once a week. Now, when they send the email, they are smarter. They put all email addresses in BCC, but before they were opened, copied. And I said, you know, with the first email that we received, I said, now the membership pays off. Okay.
Yeah. So funny. I love it. That's great.
And I recall that there was somebody with PSCNG email address. So maybe this would be a good opportunity to actually hack into this access, you know, and send email.
Yeah, and it's always great to partner with other organizations, especially if you're doing an event for the first time. So that's great.
And Stan, I have a suggestion if you can hear me. At Beltworks and Homedale, they've been hosting movies for the last few months. They have, you know, a setup there. I think they may have ended for the season now, but I'm sure we could likely sponsor something for a movie night with them. So they,
which address again? Which location, town?
This is the Bell Works building in Homedale, New Jersey.
Homedale. Okay, okay. So it's Monmouth County, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and I wonder if any two local retail centers. I mean, just depending again on what your the codes are for COVID, but you know, people trying to get at least people into restaurants and shopping, that might be a good place to look too, because they have the parking lots, and then if they can, you know, have people buying things too.
Okay. I'm just sharing screen and I'm waiting for Doug O'Malley to connect. Wait a second, what is that? Hey, Doug.
Hey, Stan, how you doing?
Good, how are you? Thank you for joining us. Thank you for accepting our invitation. We really are happy to have you. Let me give you wait a second. I have to stop presenting. I just wanted to show the agenda. We just got April. Now it's your turn, and after that we'll have chapter report. We'll talk about RideWise virtual event with Pam Frank. 4th webinars, discounts for members, in-person monthly meetings, EV Expo in Madison, and then social chat. So let me stop sharing, and I give you access as a co-host so that you can actually show your slides.
Sure. So
you've got quite of a beard.
I do. This is my election beard, beard, as it were. And I'd like, we have Anthony Martin, so we'll let Anthony in. So we'll have, you know, hopefully some very good news very shortly. I think a lot of us are anxious, doesn't even begin to describe it. But what I wanted to, you know, I have about 15 minutes or so. I did want to kind of give less of the kind of Nate Silver version of the election and more of obviously the EV version of the election, which really does focus on the Senate, and just giving us a kind of a gut level check and just kind of where we are, right? And I think in America, we are just so used to having instantaneous electoral results. And in many ways is a really great argument, right? You know, we hate waiting. You know, there's been literally years of organizing advocacy that have gone into elections. So I'm strongly in favor of taking the time it takes to count every vote, as you might imagine. But there is just such an importance of what, you know, our national agenda is going to look like, not only based on who ultimately wins the Arizonas of the world and the Pennsylvanias of the world, but ultimately who wins some of these tightest Senate elections. And I think at the end of the day, and I know you're going to hate me when I say this, we are not over, right? We're not going to be over tomorrow or Friday or next week. We are most likely looking at a runoff election in both Senate races down in Georgia, which is crazy to kind of say. And I think this just reflects just the changing demographics of America. And also in many ways, the changing demographics of both political parties. You know, the fact that Joe Biden, you know, if he does ultimately become president, was powered by, you know, older senior citizens, primarily white, I think is just mind blowing. And the fact that the president won Florida based on the Hispanic vote is also, you know, kind of perhaps understandable if you're of Cuban descent. In Miami, but I think you know, it's just a reminder that obviously voting is not and politics is not an exact science, and there's a lot of gradations there. It's not black and white; it's shades of gray. But the point I'm trying to make here is that you know, the results are kind of unusual, but ultimately the most important thing, of course, is not only who's in the White House, but what he, in this case, there's only two options, what he can do kind of with that power. And that ultimately comes down to control of Congress. I'd say a couple surprises. And I'll try not to be kind of uber national, because we are obviously, I think the appropriate phrase is homers, right? We care first and foremost about New Jersey. So I will want to spend a little time just talking about what the federal races meant in New Jersey. But at the end of the day, I think one of the biggest surprises is you had a ton of local House races where the polling, and I think this is also kind of the hidden story of this race, is that everyone said, don't trust the polls. And the pollsters said, no, we've done our homework. We've changed things around. We're doing kind of uber localized attention, polling. And at the end of the day, the polling's just off, right? It's not reflective. Most polling has a margin of, it's outside the margin of error too. And most polling is off by anywhere from 5 to 6 to 7 or 8 points, right? So right now, the projections I saw this afternoon is that Biden is projected to win Wisconsin by 20,000 votes. Going into the election, Biden had an 8 to 9 point lead in Wisconsin. So that's not just margin of error. That is just kind of a fundamental, I don't know if I call it a shy Trump voter, but just a fundamental difference in projecting electoral results based upon live action phone surveys, which I don't know if you guys have gotten this, right? You have to be the sort of person who, one, picks up the phone, two, is willing to spend at least 10 minutes on the phone talking to a stranger. And three, it assumes that, you can be reached by, a landline or by a cell phone, and you are actually willing to kind of pick up a cell phone. So I'm the sort of person who, generally answers the phone, because that's just what I'm kind of trained to do from a professional level. Most people are not like that. Most people do not pick up the phone, and probably a lot of you are like that unless you know who's exactly is calling. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the House races, no one was really saying that Democrats were going to lose seats in the House, and that's what happened. You didn't see a kind of a red wave, but you definitely saw Democrats, especially more rural areas, lose or certainly not win by the margins they were expected. And I think that's something to, and I want to kind of localize the conversation quickly to New Jersey. We came into this with 10 Democrats and 2 Republicans in our in our delegation. And what we saw is not just kind of, the margins of victory in South Jersey for Andy Kim are just off the charts, right? This is a district that is, not liberal, right? I don't know how many of you from South Jersey or from Burlington or Ocean counties, but this is a red district. And Andy Kim won it going away. They're still going to count votes, right? There's a lot of mail-ins, but he's projected to win by something close to 10 points. He won by, I think, less than 4,000 votes last time, less than 1%. That's just mind-blowing. And then the other part of the state, the 7th, which stretches from Union County all the way out into Hunterdon, Tom Malinowski just drubbed Tom Kean Jr., who's a Senate Minority Leader, someone I know well, is I think a friend to electrification, has very strong environmental bona fides. And Tom Kean Jr., obviously son of our former governor, he got beat like a drum. Malinowski, just one going away. It's about a 10-point margin there too. And so I think that just shows just a fundamental evolution in the suburban vote, where communities like Westfield, Westfield historically has been a Republican town. The entire, and I might be a little off now, maybe something changed, but the mayor's a Democrat, Shelley Brindle. Most council members are Democrats. The suburban vote, is Democratic. And that's, I think, very much a Trumpian effect. Then we go to South Jersey, right? We have Jeff Van Drew, historically a conservative Democrat, who famously flipped parties this January and endorsed the president based on our impeachment, pledged his undying support. Jeff Van Drew, is up by a pretty sizable margin right now, about 9,000 votes. There And actually, Peter, that's a really good question. I think they have forgotten the word Kane, kind of in the same way they perhaps have forgotten the word Kennedy. So, Kennedy, I think Amy ran a really good campaign. I'm not kind of counting her out. But, what you saw, of course, is that the margins in South Jersey, which is inherently more rural, especially his district, we're supportive, more supportive of Andrew than the polling was indicating. So all of this is going to take a couple days to shake out. If you kind of had to bet money on it right now, the House definitely stays Democratic. The Senate stays Republican, although there's a big asterisk with Georgia. There's going to be a runoff in early January. And then usually you would say that's kind of fool's gold, right? A runoff in Georgia that would definitely lean to the Republicans. But, you're looking at, some really tight races down there, and Georgia's a different state and a different place. But if you were to put money on it right now, knowing what we know, you'd say Republicans still control the Senate, and then obviously this is not over, but you would say that Biden kind of seeks has a very large popular vote victory and a very narrow, similar to Trump 4 years ago, a very narrow electoral vote victory. What that means for electoral policy, or less electoral policy, more our policy, our questions on EV. We've been waiting 4 years for kind of infrastructure week, right? And so I think a lot of you during the debates were probably excited to hear the vice president talk about some of his electrification proposals. Obviously that is just talk on a debate stage. And so really this will depend upon the House and the Senate. I think I've been, it's been really interesting to hear House candidates in New Jersey, especially Tom Malinowski, who talks about the Gateway Tunnel all the time, talk about electrification as if it's kind of, a core part of infrastructure. As we all know, we only have a handful of charging stations in the state. So the fact that Malinowski, public charging stations, the fact that Malinowski is kind of equating something as core as the Gateway project with electrification is just a great sign of how far we've come. And I think that the biggest challenge now is how do we, get, both Democratic leadership, potentially a Biden administration, and certainly how do we get Senate Republicans, or at least enough Senate Republicans, even one or two or three, to be able to support kind of this broader electrification agenda. I certainly don't have kind of all the answers on this, but I will say I think there's some good parallels within the offshore wind industry, which has continued to expand drastically during the Trump administration, partially because when you're starting with nothing, there's only one place to go but up. The Department of Interior has not been amazing on offshore wind, but they have helped to spur the industry forward. On electrification, I think the issues are more, certainly all of the home rule issues of getting charging stations installed. So even with a massive stimulus project, if we can't fix home rule and we can't figure out how to install more chargers, we're going to be in a world of hurt. But the fact that we have the fact that there's going to be a ton of incentives to have a stimulus bill, and whether a stimulus bill is passed in the lame duck session, I would have to imagine there's going to be something along the lines of what we saw for the American Recovery Act, formerly known as, or informally known as, the stimulus from 2009. There's something along those lines, and I'd say it's kind of incumbent upon us to be getting in line with our senators, Senator Booker and Senator Menendez, and some of our House members, to make it very clear that New Jersey, as a corridor state and as a state that has the highest population density in America, that we should be getting federal dollars for electrification. And that, I think, goes kind of across the broad brush. It's light duty, it's heavy duty. But the idea is that we should, we should get more money than Montana, right? We obviously know that, if the Senate stays the way it is, the levers of power for the majority leader McConnell, is not, he hasn't actually favored electrification, right? That's not a big issue in Kentucky. But the hope is that there's enough kind of Republican members in the caucus, and there's enough pressure from the House as well as having a stimulus plan that's being pushed out as a broader recovery package from COVID that will include electrification as recovery, right? So I think that's, and I want to kind of wrap up because I want to be able to take questions from all of you, because I'm sure you'll have them. But I think that's really the challenge for kind of local organizations. And I just jumped into this, of course, and I know Stan and I know each other relatively well. I kind of assumed a level of knowledge from all of you, but organizations like ours, Environment New Jersey, represents 20,000 citizen members, more than 60,000 email activists. We're definitely one of the kind of core environmental advocates in the state. But really, I kind of think the thing that makes the EV movement different is that you don't have to be an environmentalist to drive an EV. And as all of you know, actually most EV owners don't consider themselves to be environmentalists. Not to say that you don't have to be, but the original adopters were car gals and guys, were people that liked just great performance, that were tech wizards and early adopters. So there definitely are kind of like the Prius owners that flipped over to like the Teslas and the Leafs. But, you know, I think one of the things that makes the EV experience just different from other kind of environmental organizing opportunities is that car culture and environmental culture don't necessarily mix, except here they do. And so what we ultimately are offering to the American public and the New Jersey public is just a superior product. All of you know that intensely. And so one of the things that we are kind of very clear in our advocacy is that, you know, we are kind of advocating for EVs for a whole host of reasons. And they obviously include cleaner air and fighting climate change. But there's so many other reasons to be supporting EVs than just kind of a green message. And so one of them, of course, is the infrastructure jobs that it will provide by creating a charging network across this country, across our interstate highway systems. In the state, I was literally in a settlement meeting, which I not that the details would be kind of tremendously interesting, but a settlement meeting that was confidential today regarding interveners with Atlantic City Electric, the utility, and the State Board of Public Utilities. And that intervention process is whether the state will have $40 million of revenue from ratepayers go towards electrification programs that Atlantic City Electric has proposed. There's a similar proposal for PSE&G. It's much larger because obviously PSE&G is, you know, it's a bigger company, serves a lot more of us. That's more than $300 million. Those are the kind of sorts of investments that I kind of think are down payments. And I would like to think that when we talk about a federal recovery package, which we will do, that we talk about infrastructure, we talk about kind of our core transit needs, which are desperately, we need to save New Jersey Transit more than ever. We need to have a gateway tunnel, but we also need to have a kind of 21st century electrification network and charging network that can exist not just in theory, not just on maps, but exists through funding at the federal level. And this, I think, speaks to a lot of, I'm kind of been very politically focused and then very federally focused. But as all of you know, the governor has done a lot of good things for the industry. The passage of the EV law this January, which I know seems like an eon ago, that $5,000 rebate, that's spurring purchases, right? And you probably know friends, all of you probably told people, hey, if you're on the fence, you can get $5,000 to get an EV, plus, depending on which type of vehicle you're buying, $7,500 from the feds, plus a sales tax exemption. And so my kind of good ally and friend, Jim Appleton and NJ Carr says, and Jim and I fought tooth and nail against the clean car legislation 15 years ago. He is now a strong ally because he sees the demand from consumers, but more importantly from his dealers that say, look, EVs are the future. And you have car dealers are usually a family business. It's passing down the next generation. And they're saying, look, these cars aren't going away. This is not a niche market. These are going to take over. We have to learn how to sell them and market them. And, Jim is not a kind of a reluctant evangelist, but he's a realist. And he says, look, people aren't going to buy cars if they're massively more expensive. You give a rebate of $5,000, you give a $7,500 federal tax credit, you give the sales tax exemption. Suddenly you're looking, as he described in a webinar we hosted less than 2 weeks ago, a $17,000 delta gets down to about $2,000 to $3,000. That's a lot easier. And so you obviously are, with your friends and family, you can kind of sell that. You can tell people about that, but it's a lot harder to say you're going to save money driving an EV because it's cheaper than saying, hey, you can get a lot more money right back at the table by buying an EV through these federal tax credits. And so that's the other thing that definitely is on the agenda here is what's the extension of what's the extension of the federal EV tax credit? What does that look like? Because that's really critical. So I just want to kind of wrap up here, just because we have a question from Peter in the chat. And if people have other questions, feel free to put it in the chat. I want to make sure we stay on time, but also to take your questions. The oil lobby in New Jersey is not insignificant. API are my good friends, Jim Benton and American Petroleum Institute. They obviously are not in favor of EVs. I'd say that our problem generally is not the oil industry, although we certainly have refineries, and refineries have a big stake in the state. I don't know how many people know this, but the Paulsboro refinery, which really is kind of the heart of Paulsboro, is shutting down. And that's an impact of COVID. And I think, we are just living, these are just weird days. These are strange days. Who knows when this virus ends? The world is not going to go back the same way. And that's going to mean that people are not going to drive as much. There's going to be much more virtual meetings like this. It also means that refinery in Paulsboro is probably not coming back. That's a good thing for the climate. Not necessarily great for the workers that just got laid off, but that's a transition that's going to happen, in this case, sooner rather than later. But if it didn't happen now, it would happen sometime in the 2020s. And that's an evolution that can't happen fast enough. But part of our issue right now, electrification in the state, is even if we had these federal dollars, we have 560 towns that have their own rules. And so we need to kind of bust home rule. We need to make it easier to put a charger. We need to make it not just kind of inherently beneficial, but almost mandatory. So this isn't just about putting chargers and, God bless Molly Pitcher, right? Great to have so many chargers along the rest stops on the turnpike. That really benefits you only if you're kind of going to Maine and back, right? And we need the turnpike to be electrified. We need the parkway to be electrified, but we need to make sure that there's more public chargers everywhere. And to make that happen, we need to fix kind of zoning. We need to make sure that, we have towns that are fully on board for what we're trying to do. So let me just kind of wrap up and take questions live and not just in the chat.
Doug, thank you so much. It was very insightful. And we'll take questions. I'll have one question. So, and I mentioned this to others, to Mark Warner. He was presenting in July. Can we consider to actually not just dumping money into the EV industry and incentivize, but also take it from the bag? Because the goal of the state is to curb the carbon emissions, carbon dioxide, right? So, and I recall that in my volunteering work in Franklin Township, we have some applications to build another gas station. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, like, can we kind of make it more difficult for new applications so that they would be denied? Or how about the cost of removal of the underground tank, right? So it's not being really factored in. Why they build new? Why don't they take the old one, take care of the whatever if the problem is the underground tank, you have to remove it and put new one or something. So that's one thing. And the other thing is we have very, very cheap gas in New Jersey. And I think that this is just, we are not charging. I just was having discussion on Facebook. We are not charging a waste disposal fee because carbon dioxide, it's a garbage, right? And we are not charging for the sewage fee, so to speak.
Carbon tax. Carbon tax.
It's a different way of saying that, but the carbon tax is, you are a little bit more technical and some people may not like it, but I think if we use the terminology of sewage fee or disposal fee, I think people may understand, hey, you know, I'm disposing something into the atmosphere, so I have to pay a fee, right? I think this is maybe better language. What is your take on that?
Yeah, so now we're getting the fun stuff, right? How do we actually make people to pay for the pollution?
Yeah.
And generally, yeah, I couldn't agree more. Gas is too cheap, right? But you tell that to, you have the typical New Jersey and you say, oh, you got to pay more for gas. You know, that still kind of resonates.
And let me add, because April doesn't know, in New Jersey, we have mandatory full service. So nobody is pumping their own gas. And when you go to electric charging station, do you think somebody will do it for you, right? No. And let me tell you, if you have ChargeEVC, this is very non-intuitive to plug ChargeEVC in. It's awful.
Stan, how about incrementally, instead of denying an application for a new gas station, trying to say any new applications for a gas station construction have to include so and so many charging stations for every gas pump.
Yes, of course.
Or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
Start small or something like that.
Yeah, but the problem with that is that's not where you want charging stations.
No, I know.
Nobody wants to hang out a gas station.
I know.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
But I can see a world where just a few years from now, neighborhood gas stations don't exist. The corner, you know, where I live, there's an intersection where 3 of the 4 corners of the intersection have a gas station. There's 3 of them. 10 years from now, 15 years from now, you're not going to need but 1 at the most. It's the gas stations along the highway that you might want to make sure have the charging, right?
Yep.
That's right. I mean, gas stations essentially are, I mean, you know, go back in time, right? Like the filling, they used to be called filling stations, right? You know, it's going to be a little bit like the neighborhood pharmacy. It's just not going to exist 20 years from now. You know, now of course I think the real issue is, well, how do we kind of accelerate that? And I think, you know, the simple answer is all in our hands. It's things like this, right? You know, who was using a smartphone 20 years ago, right? And that's and for that matter, 15 years ago, nobody. You know, and that who still has a landline that isn't just like you know, just in case the power goes out, I have a landline. You know, no one, you know, that's been a market change. And I think the more that we can kind of ensure that we're reducing range anxiety by creating more charging stations, that facilitates this change. You know, and I guess part of this is it's not going to be as rapid as cell phones because, you know, there is, you know, we're going to see kind of a massive change in the market over the course of the next decade, but we're not going to eliminate ICE vehicles in the next decade. What we can be thinking about, right, is what California just did. And that the fact that California banned new ICE sales in 2035, you know, I'd like to say is revolutionary. That it's kind of what we need to be doing based on just the climate goals, because obviously you sell a nice car in 2034 and it's going to be around for a decade. I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to kind of hang on to their Mustangs or what have you. Although I think really, if you care about performance, you should be getting into an EV right now. Don't wait for 2034. You know, I don't need to kind of tell you that the fact that the EV market will reach cost parity sooner, a lot sooner than that, closer to like 2024. And I think that's when things really start to shift. And that's kind of the transition that we kind of need to advocate for. And so when we talk about kind of gas being too cheap, my biggest concern, of course, is the move by not even kind of the oil lobby. I would say the road building lobby is our biggest concern, because the gas tax is funded, it funds road construction, right? And that road construction supports labor unions, which are highly influential. And so the trade unions are opposing the Transportation and Climate Initiative, which is kind of like a wonk fest of sorts, but it's a cap and invest method. So it's not a straight carbon tax, but it is a cap and invest method to cap our carbon emissions in the Northeast region by essentially, you know, putting a charge on refineries. And of course, the concern is, hey, April, The concern is that you're going to see that increase at the pump. And I don't think that's a bad thing, right? We just had our gas tax go up a dime because people aren't driving as much during COVID. I have not really seen that much, no one is kind of yelling and hollering because gas is really cheap right now. I would love to be able to have, TCI move forward, the Transportation and Climate Initiative, and have those investments go towards reducing air pollution, increasing public transit, and increasing electrification for all sectors. And I don't know if we're going to get there, but part of this is just weaning people off the idea that gas taxes and a user tax is the way we pay for our roads, right? Like there's very few of the things in this country that we say, oh, only if you go to school are you going to have to pay for public schools, right? So there's inherently a regressive function to the gas tax. And honestly, one of the things I'm worried most is the highway lobby is going to come in, and there's already a bill that's been passed that kind of basically to study this issue is going to come in and say, all right, once you reach 100,000 EVs on the road, you're going to have to pay. And obviously anyone that gets a bill for the gas tax, if literally each of us had to pay a bill for the gas tax, I don't want to say there'd be riots, but people will be pissed. People do not know how much they pay for the federal gas tax or the state gas tax, right? And all of those, of course, investments, and they're obviously, good in the sense of we have a working road system, but we need to make sure that we are delinking gas usage with paying for our roads, because that's backwards, and we should not be penalizing EV drivers for making the right choice. So that's one of the things that I think, I don't know when this, and Dan Benson, who I love, was a sponsor of this bill, and he's kind of coordinated with it. But we have to make sure that EV drivers do not get penalized for making the right choice.
I had a question. So I heard a lot of the barriers, and maybe this is a question too for the group. So we talked about kind of funding for infrastructure programs is not necessarily there, some policy issues, the cost of gas. And then you also mentioned what I call permitting. So the number of townships and so how is permitting really, if we boil it down, is that a huge barrier? And is that even the right word for it?
I don't know if it's a barrier, it's a hurdle.
Okay.
And that's because this is just one of, I'm not like a land use expert, but people literally get paid way too much money to figure out how to, get stuff permitted at the local level. And some of this is just, it's the joy of New Jersey towns, right? Everybody has their own keys to the kingdom. And the reason I'd say it's a hurdle, not a barrier, is because, we have legislative champions like Dan Benson that want to fix this. And I think for the most part, people aren't going to say, oh, I don't want, people aren't going to say no to EV chargers. The problem is, how do we get the funding in the first place to make sure there's enough EV chargers and to make sure there's enough DC-FC chargers, right? So, because level 2s I think are kind of good to some degree, of course, right? It's like the public bathroom option of public charging. But what we really need is the super porta pot, right? Like the luxury porta pot. That's DC-FC. And all of you clearly know the difference, and I don't think there's been an acknowledgement that, of course, that's going to mean more money, and that's where I really kind of hope the feds can kind of help here, because we're all homers here. We're thinking about New Jersey, but really we need to electrify all 95, right? Like you shouldn't, and I know obviously a lot of you are Tesla advocates, and kudos to Tesla for creating their own market system. I think there's a lot of comparisons between kind of Tesla and Apple, but we do need to have a system that isn't necessarily kind of responsive to kind of only one company. You should be able to drive across America. But I would start. Let's just talk about drive across New Jersey, and just make it easier for folks to have that network. Now,
well, I have one recommendation just when it comes to the permitting, because we had the same issue here. And so literally what we did was we wrote a permit strategy.
Yeah.
We took it around to the 26 municipalities that make up the county of San Diego. We presented it to them. And what we were finding is that, just along an invisible border, on one side, they were charging, $1,000 to permit a charging station, where on the other side was just hundreds. And it was only they weren't doing it on purpose or, you know, to say, you know, bad things about one side or the other. They just didn't know. And so once we presented them with the strategy and then, you know, tied that to some numbers, what we saw was more of a streamlining of permitting across the county, and then the fees actually being reduced versus increased. So that's just one idea there. And I see Steve in the comments, and I will reach out to you from Louisiana. I love that we have Louisiana checking in with the New Jersey ones. It's awesome.
Yeah, no,
Steve used to be in New Jersey.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
okay,
he just moved
Steve.
recently, and I think he wants to open a chapter in Louisiana, don't you?
Yay! More chapters. We need those.
I wanted to add something. In New Jersey, and I'm sure most of the people on this call are aware, is that there's a statewide program called Sustainable Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And individual towns can become bronze, silver, gold certified. And a part of that process, you have to look at, I look at it, Sustainable Jersey as a way of the state pushing an agenda, pushing a way for you to get a little badge by you doing things they want you to do. It's their incentivization to get you to do this. And so in my town, you know, the EV stuff, you know, they encourage the towns to write EV legislation for their towns about permitting, about putting in public chargers, about encouraging the charging infrastructure. And so I think at least in New Jersey, there's a push to get that. What you experience in San Diego, hopefully the Sustainable Jersey push to get that EV stuff into the towns is trying. That's their goal, is to prevent that situation.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
So this kind of speaks, in April, it's kind of helpful to kind of hear the experience from California, because obviously California is considered to be the mecca for EVs, but things are, it's not kind of perfect everywhere, and we're still learning.
The Northwest is just doing phenomenally, though. Yeah.
Mecca for EV is Norway, okay? Just for the record.
That is true. We can't forget about that.
Meccas. We're not quite at California's level.
Right.
But I wanted to come back to kind of Caleb's point here, because Sustainable Jersey is, like, talk about positive reinforcement. They've been able to get so much progress and work and just investment, because towns are just inherently, we're all kind of competitive beings, right? Everyone wants to get the gold, bronze, platinum, level. Sustainable Jersey is kind of put, it used to be more kind of land use.
We lost you.
Policy, and it's broadened to water policy. It's certainly, the harness here is to get those towns to weigh in at the state level to make sure that the League of Municipalities is not pushing back and say, oh, don't tell us towns what to do. So this is something I'm kind of harping on, because again, I think this is a hurdle, not a barrier. And I know that seems like it's a distinction without a difference, but the reason I say that is because I think there's just a lot of momentum and leadership in the state legislature. And then the league is very responsive to its members. And the more towns that say, we want to be able to push electrification, the better. So, Stan, I kind of bring this up because this is an issue that came up just recently in the last 2 weeks with Dan Benson. He's going to work to push this legislation on the state level in the Assembly and in the Senate. So this is very kind of inside baseball stuff, but having EV enthusiasts and drivers like yourselves, and having chapters weigh in favor of this bill will be immensely helpful. So I'll definitely reach out to you if it is scheduled.
Yes, I would like to know more, because this is the first time that I hear about it.
Yeah, well, this is generally the kind of the right time to hear about a bill before it gets like fully introduced. Just for those of you that don't follow the legislative process, like it's just like their job.
So this is related to road tax, or?
Not road tax, no. So that's another conversation for Benson, is what's his plan for this commission. Generally commissions don't have the force of law, but we don't want to come out with any recommendation that says, oh, once EVs hit 100,000 or 150,000, that we'll suddenly be sending a bill to EV owners. Our whole point is that we are giving people $5,000 rebates so that they go out and we have a race to the top to get EVs, so that we can hit our California Clean Cars mandate of 330,000 EVs by 2025. I think all of us know that we are nowhere near that right now. but the idea
Very
is that
far.
we are very far, 300,000 off to be exact, with roughly 4 years left. The way we're going to make up that gap is to, basically the market is getting better. The rebates are going to help. And I guess the last thing I'll say here, and this is counterintuitive, but I think as EV drivers, all of you get this, range anxiety is kind of like it's an old school problem, because it used to be range anxiety really was real. If you were driving
It's an excuse.
Yes, exactly. Most people are not driving 300 miles in a day. So,
yeah. And I remember when Jim Appleton, you were referring to him, when he has his deck, he has 2 items. One of them is range anxiety,
yeah.
And I think that in 2020 is just an invalid argument,
Well, I think for the most part, and Jim has actually, I think it's a little more personal for Jim, because he's a driver, right? He goes statewide with his car, and he ended up running out of juice. You do that a couple times, you have to order a tow truck.
He was not watching the gauge.
Exactly, and this is kind of where I always kind of joke, because that range anxiety, you don't have to drive an EV to have range anxiety. Some people just like to, they live on the edge. They want to get that last mile in, right? How far can I get to the gas station? How close am I to home or to the charger? And I would argue, it's a lot easier with an EV to figure out how many miles you have left.
You have, with accuracy of single-digit miles.
Yeah.
Estimated. The gas car will not tell you that. The closest accuracy, I used to have Volkswagen. It would give me in tens of miles, maybe 50 or something. But there is a difference. I always say, with a gas station, we are trained that we have to go somewhere to refuel.
Correct.
Okay, you cannot refuel at home. You do not have your gas station at home, and this is the shift in paradigm. But that's also, and that's what I wanted to tackle, it's also potentially social injustice here, because not everybody can charge at home. This is the preferred way. This is much better. This is why I have electric car, by the way, because my car is doing nothing at night, and I can plug it in and I can pool the fuel cost with my utility bill. This is the cheapest fuel if you charge it at home. Forget it whether you have solar system or not. It's the cheapest if you charge at home. If you go to rapid charger, people don't recognize you cannot be just charged for kilowatt hours, because you get the energy fast. It's a load demand fee. So it's expensive. And now imagine those people who do not own home, and those are from the lower income group. How come that we ask them, okay, now you don't charge at home, you have to go to rapid charger, which means you don't refill in 5 minutes. It takes, if you're lucky, 15 minutes. And it's actually not even savings for you. So
this is kind of an important point to bring up, because when you are charging on the go, depending on where you are, you can get ripped off.
I'm not talking about charging on the go. I'm talking about the 90% of charging when you always end up at home. And if you don't own the home, if you don't have control over the parking spot, because the landlord would refuse to install charging station, or you park on the street. I mean, we don't have too much time to talk about this, but anyway.
This is kind of well-worn territory, but I think it's worth talking about, because a third of the state rents, right? And really EVs only work if you have a single-family home with a detached garage. Right. And that's a lot of the state. It's not everybody. Right. So you can live in Newark or Jersey City or Hoboken, and, you have a lot. We work a lot with Jersey City. They're really excited about electrification. Jersey City is more than it's like 350,000 people. They have a lot of chargers, and a lot in their mind is like 40. Right. So it's not on the scale we need. I don't necessarily have kind of the solutions on how we create public charging in kind of dense urban areas. From my mind, I think we need to be looking at electrification that benefits everybody. So we are very focused in this case, like this club, very focused on light duty, getting people out of ICE cars and into EVs. But there's also the fact that 500,000 people in the state, at least pre-COVID times, get on a bus. That bus is not electric. It should be. There's obviously more that get on a train, right? And I'm not going to get into electric trains per se, but we have to make sure there's options that aren't necessarily, that are more public transit oriented. And then obviously there's a lot of people that have cars in cities, and I don't necessarily have kind of good solutions for it, but you know, that starts to get an infrastructure, and that gets a cost, and that gets at how we get the wires in place. So we have fast, you know, DCFC for not only for light duty, but also for heavy duty. Because that's like when we talk about environmental justice and air pollution, and this is something to kind of remember, the state is about to roll out a voucher program, you know, at least this is what I'm assuming, a voucher program for medium and heavy duty vehicles. And that's going to be, I think, hugely important because trucks are just so polluting, but you need a place to plug them in. And those trucks that are coming from the port and coming down to 8A, we need like Molly Pitcher, like that's like the truck stop, right? Next time you stop at Molly Pitcher, look at that truck stop. Look how many trucks are idling. That's what we should be electrifying. And we need the state to make those investments. And if the state can't do it, the Fed should do it. So I know I'm way over time here, but you know,
well, we are having great time, but you are right. We have to move on.
Yeah, no, I fully acknowledge that. So this,
we thank you so much.
Yeah.
It has been lots of fun, and as you mentioned, we have to be very patient with the elections.
Yes.
And hope for the best for the electric cars.
That's right. Exactly.
Our group is bipartisan, non-political, right?
Yeah.
So, but we want to have the best for the electric cars.
Yeah, and I think just as a and thank you for Alexander. I'll put my contact information here as well as just our website. You know, there are Lisa Collins just won re-election from Maine, right? She considers herself to be a moderate. Lisa Murkowski ran as an independent from Alaska. Now, obviously, Alaska's oil lobby, so I don't have a lot of hope for Miss Murkowski. But you know, there are you know, I think plenty of Republicans that can kind of recognize a growth industry when they see one. And so that's kind of the hope here, is that everyone, you know, vast majority of Americans drive cars. People like cars to perform better. How do we get more people into EVs and convince them that we just need to build infrastructure? Just like, you know, back in 1910, you went to a pharmacy to get gas. You know, someone had to build the infrastructure to create gas stations. That's the same thing we need to do here. All of you understand that. So I'll put my contact info in the chat. Great to talk with all of you. Great to partner with you as always, Stan. And let's stay in touch. Okay. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, I was muted. Okay. So I wanted to thank them very much. And we are going to move to the next part of our meeting. But I want to acknowledge that we have a guest today here, Peter Fried. So I'm going to skip to this slide. Peter, do you want to say something?
Yes, let me say, first of all, thank you for inviting me and having me. We're in Madison, New Jersey. I'm not sure we're central. We don't know what central really is, but we're, if Louisiana is here in this meeting, then we can be too.
I can answer briefly. We were expecting that when we open our chapter, that North Jersey chapter would be open shortly, but COVID was faster. And South Jersey, I don't know. There is a Facebook page for South Jersey Club as well as for North Jersey. But speaking of the electric auto, we are kind of interim covering the whole New Jersey, even though we call ourselves Central Jersey.
Okay, let me do a quick 5-minute introduction so I don't take up too much of your agenda. We're here in Madison. You mentioned Sustainable Jersey, and we're 16,000 people here. And for towns that size, we are the #1 town in New Jersey for Sustainable Jersey. We have the highest rating in certification by Sustainable Jersey for all the different things we do. And I apologize for bragging. But we're very much wrapped up with all the different activities of Sustainable Jersey. We are unique in Madison in that we have a municipal electric utility. There are 8 or 9 towns in New Jersey that where the people in town get their electricity from a municipal utility and not from JCP&L or PSE&G or someone like that. And that is very nice because it means that the people who control the utility and the people who control the government are the same people. We can permit systems. We've just put in our first 10 cables of plug and pay chargers, level 2 chargers, public chargers in town, and our grant application is in for the next 10 cables. So we're going full bore on putting chargers into our public parking lots. That was through a grant. Of course, that was through the plug and play program. And the first 10 cables are operational as we speak. The thing in the picture was an event that we had actually planned to occur tomorrow. And someone mentioned how the car culture and the electrification culture come together. This is a prime example. There is a cafe which opened about a year ago in Madison by a fellow who is a car nut, a Porsche nut, and called Sunday Motor Company. And he has one of his classic cars in the cafe, actually. Somebody in our environmental commission said, hey, why don't we have an EV Expo of some sort? And we could have it at this place. And I went and talked to this guy and he said, that would be great. And I contacted a whole bunch of dealers, and it's interesting to see the different responses you got from the different dealers. Some who are interested in marketing their EVs and some who could care less. Some didn't respond to me at all.
I know that.
You know, and but some responded very nicely. Volvo wanted to bring a plug-in hybrid. The Porsche, of course, they said, can we bring 3 cars? And I said, wait, we don't have room for that many. So they have a small parking lot, and with COVID, we wanted to spread 4 cars out around their parking lot so we would have the right kind of distancing. And so Chevy was going to bring a Bolt, Volvo was going to bring a plug-in hybrid, Porsche was going to bring a Taycan, and a Tesla owner was going to bring over their Tesla. And then we advertised this, and we expect other people would come too. Let me not say anything I'm not supposed to say and say we basically had a pandemic-related issue that came up and caused us to cancel the event. We got a lot of good publicity for EVs out of it anyway. We'll do the event in the spring probably. Maybe if COVID's a little better, then we can get a few more cars in there. And it's a nice event. It's a win-win. The cafe owner likes it. The EV people like it. It's a car thing. It attracts people who want to just see what's going on. So that was going to be something good that I was looking forward to, and I was very upset. Well, I was just sad that we had to cancel it. One other quick one, we mentioned buses. We have in town some aged diesel-powered shuttle buses for our senior center and things like that. And I have on several occasions done investigations of replacing them with EVs. And New York City is doing a lot of that. And if it's not New York City, you probably have to go to Colorado or California. And so there is reluctance to be the first one in the state. And so we think, it's probably a year or 2 or 3 away. But the way to do this, I don't know if Doug is still on the phone or not, is to get New Jersey Transit involved, because New Jersey Transit has some sort of a program where they buy a lot of shuttle buses and lease them out to various communities for different purposes. And if you could get someone like New Jersey Transit to make the commitment to get some of these unfortunately very expensive EV shuttle buses, still pretty expensive, but they're pretty much in use in,
So there was a round of funding, and New Jersey Transit was granted funding for several New Jersey transit buses. But I think these will be located in communities that are subject of the environmental injustice.
Environmental justice communities, and those they're typically the big buses. They're typically full-size transit buses. What we were looking at here was the 12 to 15 passenger shuttle bus.
Yeah, and they would be perfect to be electric.
Yes, Motive is doing a wonderful job out west with them. They're still pretty expensive.
There are instructions how to apply on BPU, I believe. I can find out more information for you. They have cycles. So this year's cycle is over.
Yes.
But they have funding available on annual basis, and next year I would strongly recommend that you apply. And the funding, I believe, is to cover everything.
Yeah,
because you need to have the bus, and then
even in town there might be some reluctance to be the only one in the state with an EV shuttle bus. And when
you would not be even one; you would be the first one.
Yes, I know. But when you have a maintenance issue, where do you go? You go to New York City. Well, what do you do? And the other thing is, we had a very good meeting a couple of months ago with the guy in the Port Authority, the guy who's in charge of electrification things in the Port Authority. He's putting in a lot of solar carports in Port Authority parking lots. And the Port Authority and New Jersey Transit would be the two places you could get a seed program going for electrification. And once you get that kind of a seed and that kind of publicity going, then you make more progress pretty quickly. So I've just covered all the different topics about Madison that I wanted to. And I'm interested in the legislation that Doug was talking about, because, if we can support something like that, we will. That our town administrator is an ex-governor, Governor Cody. So we're always interested in getting behind it. But we have a couple of people in the town who are interested in electrification in general because they sell electricity. And if they could sell electricity for cars instead of gas stations, the town utility would make out.
I was about to suggest that the owner of the Sunday Motor Company, he could install, I don't know exactly how it looks like there, but if he installs charging station in front of his property, it would certainly attract some of the electric owners.
Yep.
And he can decide about the billing structure. He can offer it for free. He can offer it for a symbolical fee or for to match the cost of the electricity. And if it's level 2, then he doesn't have to worry about the low demand fee.
Yeah, I mean, in Madison, they've decided, and I don't know exactly what the rate is, but they've decided to make the charging rate on the public level 2 chargers equivalent to what you would pay on your home charger. So people who can't get the home charger because they live in some sort of
apartment complex or something,
whatever, they can go to one of the public cables and I believe pay essentially the same amount.
Yeah, it's important that these chargers to be located within those communities so that they don't have to walk a mile or something. Because the level 2, it's overnight charging. It's a parking and charging.
Yeah, I mean we've put them at an athletic field where people would spend 3 or 4 hours, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 hours at most, park their car, get part of their charge.
This is kind of opportunity charging. If you happen to go there and the charging is available, then you plug it in and you sip some charge. But ultimately you want to have charging station within very, very close proximity to where you live.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's in the long run, it's not go. Okay.
Thank you very much, Stan.
Thank you very much. Please stay.
I'll stay for a while. I need to run in a while, but
okay.
I'm enjoying learning about this. I'd like to find more about the legislation that Doug is talking about.
Are you talking about the 5,000 rebate?
I know
So
there's a rebate.
I'll put in a link. I found a link to the legislation.
Okay.
This is legislation that was put in place in January this year, and it provides a rebate which is meant to be paid at the point of purchase.
Yep.
It's $25 per 1 mile of range. So if your range is 200 miles, then you max it to $5,000. Any range above 200 miles, you still get the same $5,000 rebate. There is also limit as for the cost of the vehicle, because the legislation is not for rich people. So the vehicle has to be less than 55,000 invoice.
So an X could do it, right? An X is below.
Yes, yes. Unless you pick the top trim with some options. But I know that they decrease the pricing, and so more of those Model Ys did you say Model Y or Model X?
I don't know. I said X. I'm not even sure. I'm starting to
Model X, no.
No, but Model Y, you're saying.
Model Y, yes, Model Y. And Model 3, all of Model 3s are eligible. And then bunch of OEMs like Chevy, Nissan, Hyundai, Kia. What else?
Yeah, full disclosure, I do not drive an EV. I have cars in my around my house that are 10 years, 12 years, and 25 years old. And so none of them are EVs, but with cars those ages, I definitely am looking at the replacement option.
Don't wait until your vehicle falls apart, because you'll be in emergency and you will end up buying just another gas.
Thank you.
So, so I strongly suggest, you know, we are open to the public. You are more than welcome to come here and discuss and have any questions. We will be very happy to answer.
Great.
Yeah. So. And thank you for supporting electric vehicles in your municipality. This is great. We are happy to learn about it. And our organization, our mission is to actually run those EV shows. And we as a volunteers, we come in and we talk about our experience. So and we are not dealers. We are not selling any specific brand. We are brand agnostic. Our goal is to accelerate the adoption of electric vehicles. So whatever driving style, whatever your lifestyle, you can choose. So many electric vehicles are available: sedans, SUVs, hatchbacks. Next year will be pickup trucks.
You will know when our next event is planned. You will know with more advance notice than 1 week, which is what we gave you this week.
We have regular meetings every first Wednesday in a month.
Okay. Okay.
Can somebody advise me, the next December is what, 3rd or 5th?
Okay.
Anyway, and then we have a
December 2nd.
2nd, so December 2nd.
December 2nd. Okay, there's an interesting thing going on in Madison, which is there's also a push for more solar. We have about 50 residential behind the meter solars, and we're putting in community solar, which is going to be an interesting challenge in a wealthy bedroom community. We'll see how that works. And but our town utility, which sells the electricity, is a little wary and sometimes about solar, especially behind the meter, because it means they would sell less electricity. And so the strategy is to be talking about the increased demand from EVs, sort of countering the reduced demand that occurs from the residential solar. And that's a strategy which we're working with the local utility.
Do you see the website I'm showing?
Yes.
This is our website. If you want to join, you go to the membership. I was just showing the slide that the basic membership is $35, and you show your support and receive some benefits. Social media, we have meetup page, we have some Facebook. This is what I was referring to, South Jersey EV Club, and where is the North? Oh, Caleb, can you put the north?
Oh, there is a north.
There is north, yeah. Who we are. This is me, this is Alex, etc. This is not, oh, maybe Caleb could actually pitch in, because as I show the website now, you see.
You can send me information afterwards. Don't tie up everybody. Just giving me some information. I appreciate that though.
Yeah, we have www.cjeaa.org.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just move on in our agenda.
Yep.
Because we have about 20 minutes. As always, I want to thank everyone who renewed the membership over the last month, as well as thank everyone who is the new member. We got some new members. Also, this is important thing. So RideWise is organizing interactive virtual event on December 3rd, which is the day after our meeting, which actually I have to say, we will have to have the meeting on Tuesday, actually, in December, because I plan to invite two guys, do-it-yourself enthusiasts, one who made few conversions of electric vehicles. He converted gas to electric, and he's actually teaching in North Jersey. His name is Ron Grossinger. And then the other guy, his name is Matt, and he converts boats to electric. Okay, back to this. So the purpose of this event is first to give overview conversation, the agenda here, right? Pam, she's the CEO of ChargEVC, and she will say where we are now and what's next. But then they want to have more of us to pitch in, go into breakouts and have a conversation about different topics. Where do we want to go next? They didn't specify what would be the breakouts, but I already suggested that maybe we could have conversation about making driving gas cars more expensive, less convenient, which I was actually discussing today with Doug. What is the best way to change the EV incentives, whether they are perfect today or, and this is, we are talking about the state level, okay? Dealerships, education, and collaboration. Collaboration with other partners like with utilities, with townships, to promote electric vehicles and to get us to the next level, and to get, as Doug said, by 2025, we have to have 330 million electric vehicles in the, no, 330,000 electric vehicles in the state, which is a very aggressive goal. And then, so there will be ideation and call to action for the next steps. And so Pam would be responsible for that. So I wanted to have a conversation. What do you think? Anybody would be interested to be part of that? Because I'll definitely be part of that. It's good to come with ideas.
And I'm interested.
I'm going to sign off.
Yeah.
And I will try to make more time next meeting, but thank you very much.
I'd love to be a part of that, Stan. I think that'd be great.
Cool.
That's a great idea.
Yes. Just maybe I should type it in. Okay. So April. Who else? Because I then send the email to everyone who is interested.
Add me, please, Stan. Kathy. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Kathy.
Stan, go ahead and add me, Stephen.
Okay. beep, 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 beep. Done. Okay, let's go to the next one. Fourth, I guess by now everybody's aware of them. I receive emails and they have some very wonderful webinars. And I just want to highlight the three that I actually received another reminder. Just like we were discussing about, you know, the possible outcomes of the elections. So fourth, we'll have, I guess, much more thorough conversation in 1 week, right? 6 days. How will the result of the November election affect the transportation industry, charging infrastructure, federal incentives, and efficiency mandates, right? And I'm going to send this deck to everyone. Actually, what I can do, I can hit copy link, done. And when you press on that you will get where is the chat? Here. Everyone in meeting. Okay, so it's this one. Then the next one is international EV strategies and programs. So I suppose that there will be somebody from Norway again, but maybe also China, I don't know. So that would be a week after that. And then this one, e-mobility equity virtual conference. I strongly recommend that one too. This is actually in collaboration with EV Noir, which means Shelley Francis. She was presenting in August, I believe,
and
in
she's
our
also
chapter.
a board member of the National Electric Auto Association too.
She's our board member. Yeah. I also seen the roster, how many speakers they have, and it's like ginormous.
I attended this last time and it was awesome. I mean, I was just so inspired, and yeah, it was the information was fantastic.
Yeah. Discounts. Ira told me that he might. Ira, are you back in? I don't think Ira is here now, but he's very good at finding discounts for our association. He actually had another 2 companies on radar, and I was supposed to follow up. Is still on my to-do list. These are services to protect your car, like paint protection, detailing, and stuff. And this guy, he's Polish, Danek Laskowski. He even suggested whether we would be interested to tour the facility. And I was like, I tell you, if you are interested to tour the facility, take this number, take this email, and call him, let him know that you would like to know. All of our members have 10% discount. Andy was supposed to say something. He's not in today, so I'll go to the next one. Jason, are you on? Jason, can you talk about this? This is your idea. Jason suggested he's a part of the Delaware Valley Tesla Club, and they are meeting regularly every month at the East Brunswick Square Mall Superchargers. And he said that there is nothing wrong with having all other electric vehicles come in. You know, you come with the face mask, you socially distance, you can chat, you can discuss issues like cold weather driving, hints, tips, whatever.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Take it from now.
No, you covered it. That's it. I just wanted to extend the invite to anyone in
We don't
the
have
EAA.
the date.
It's November. The next one is November 14th. As you said, the second Saturday of every month.
Second Saturday of every month. Okay.
From 8 to 10 a.m. and it usually lingers after that. We meet up there. So anyone with electric vehicle, Tesla or not, you're more than welcome to come. It's at the East Brunswick Mall on Route 18. There's Tesla superchargers
what is the time
there.
again?
There's 8 to 10 a.m.
Wow, early bird.
There's Tesla superchargers there, and there's also 2 Volta chargers.
And it's a great way to meet Trump supporters. Last time we were there.
That's a different car show that's on a Sunday.
Right.
This is on a Saturday.
It's not the typical car show. I mean, it's not a car show. It's just a meeting, EV meeting.
Correct. I just figured, we haven't been meeting because of COVID and stuff, but anyone that would like to come out is more than welcome to.
And there is no registration required, right?
No.
And if people have questions or want to confirm, let's say that somebody's not sure, the bad weather, is the meeting in place or not? Is there any way how to verify?
So, I mean, the Delaware Valley Tesla Owners Club's website, we post the event there. You can RSVP. It's free. It will tell us how many people are coming. So you don't need to create an account or anything. You could just put your name and email, and you'll get an email saying that you registered. And if there are any changes, or if the weather is bad and we're actually going to cancel it, we would send out an email to anyone that registered there.
I see. So, so there is no website where people can visit.
Yeah. So the website is dvto.club.
dvto.club.
DVTO, Delaware Valley Tesla Owners.
You don't have to type www, right?
No.
And you said
that,
I
figured it'd be nice to see some of the people from this club that I know I haven't seen in quite a while, and especially for the new people who have never seen any of us. If anyone wants to come out,
well,
we have permission from like the mall to use the lot and all that. So,
speaking of new people, I wonder, how do we reach the new owners that got the electric vehicle because of the incentives this year? Because dealers, I don't know, we cannot approach them and say, hey, give me contact, right? But it would be very interesting to get this crop of EV adopters on board, because they are the newest. They may have kind of unprecedented drive to spread the word, or share something. So if you have chance to get in touch with someone, try to tell them, hey, join us. They don't have to be members, so to speak, but I was showing in the previous slides, if they want to be on the mailing list, send me their name and email address and zip code. This is the core, this is the minimum information, so that they can receive actually those emails. We have right now about 233 subscribers. Well, some of them unsubscribed, so I shouldn't say subscribers, but we have about 210 active email addresses that allow that are emails. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? We are done, Jason?
I don't have anything else. That's all.
Okay. Any questions from anyone else? No. Okay. I'll go to the next one. Did anyone attend any Franco treating? Do we have a question here? I'm just reading a chat message.
Oh my gosh.
Send subscription info to the EV car salesman we know. Okay, I'll figure it out later. So these pictures, if you Google Frank or treating, this is what you get, okay? Maybe I should make it over the whole screen. That doesn't imply that, you know, these are us. No. So I'm just shooting question. Did anybody attend any Franco treating event this year? Probably not.
No, but this is so cool to see. Thanks for sharing it. This is awesome.
Yeah. I like also this one with the lit teeth, like from snake, you know.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah, that's cool.
This one has actually trunk.
The Tesla Club did a Frank retreat on Halloween down in South Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't attend, but they did. We do it every year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is it for children or is it for the Tesla owners?
Children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are some ideas, and what is really unique about those vehicles with Frank, that you can scream the message that this vehicle is different to a child, right? Because everybody is getting used to that when you pop up the front hood that you see engine, and hey, you know, obviously he didn't remove the engine to make the show, right? So, and okay, so this is mandatory slide, but I think that we are kind of off season for in-person events. I'm not really expecting anything to pop up, not that I would block it. But also it looks like the COVID is getting kind of crazier. So putting all this together, and you heard Peter today that he was pushed to cancel the event. Hopefully we can resume activities in spring, but I would like to keep these monthly meetings because we have virtual events, and virtual events don't mind weather or whatever. And I want to give updates on those webinars and hear back from you, your stories and stuff. So what's up? What's new on your end, guys? Say something.
Well, I got my power back.
Oh, you didn't have power.
Nothing like 3 hurricanes in 5 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
Trying to remember why I moved back here. Alex, I did dig out your video of using the inverter in your car. Unfortunately, I couldn't order an inverter fast enough. It was frustrating. First time in 20 years I haven't had a generator when I've lost power. I'm sitting here looking at 64 kilowatts of power sitting out in front of my house, and like in the dark, in the cold. So.
And we would like to figure how to hook up Tesla to inverter, because apparently there is something about Tesla that it's non-intuitive, not simple. And yet, by default, all Model 3s, they have inverter that is bidirectional. Now, just upload the software that will make it available, this bidirectional functionality, right? I think that's another level that we cannot address here. But really the way how we do it, that we hook up inverter to 12-volt battery system, you know, you turn on the vehicle to keep the 12-volt system powered from the big battery, and that's what we do.
Yeah, that's what Alex's video was talking about. I got to tell you that 12-volt battery in my Model 3 is the tiniest 12-volt battery I've seen outside of a computer backup system. I mean, the one in my
The question is,
Bolt was huge.
the question is, what's the capacity of the DC-DC converter?
Yeah.
Because I noticed that even with vehicles like Nissan, if the system is seeing drop in voltage, it will instantly, seamlessly compensate the load with the inverter, with the onboard. So it doesn't go from the little battery. I thought that it goes from the battery and the battery gets recharged from the converter onboard, but apparently it goes instantly from that.
Well, I've got another hurricane coming. I've got a whole week to read up on it. So,
wow.
And all those years in journalism school are paying off.
I'm a communications major. I love it, Stephen. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've been doing IT work for the last 20 years since people quit paying for newspaper editors.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Steve, have you been able to dig out the business with the VIN numbers being checked?
That's a dead end. It's
a dead end. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it turned, as near as I can tell, when I put down on my taxes that I bought a Chevy Bolt or a Chevy Volt or a Tesla Model 3, all of which I've purchased over the last 3.5, 4 years. I put that down on my taxes. The IRS doesn't really do anything with that. They don't they don't have any system to double check. They can easily double check to see if that's a valid VIN, and they do, but they don't double check to see if that VIN is assigned to a car that's on the Department of Energy's list of cars eligible for the rebate, much less keep a list, make a list public or private. They don't track the fact that this VIN number has been used, much less who used it.
Yeah,
I mean, and that goes back to when I worked when I was at the Times, I did a lot of work dealing with tax related software programs. And David K. Johnston, I worked with him a lot, and that's where he got his Pulitzer for tax work when he was at the Times. And he had said like 15, 20 years ago that Congress had starved the IRS because the IRS kept investigating their rich donors, and the rich donors didn't like it. And so Congress starved the IRS, and they now have no auditing function to speak of. They typically audit people. And if you read his stuff in dcreportmedia.org, the Congress typically audits people who have incomes of under 30,000 a year because it's easy. And the idea that they would track VINs is they just don't do it.
That's interesting to know.
Yeah, it's the nice thing about being in the newspaper business and being old is you get to meet a lot of really smart people. Yeah, I got hired at one job in Dallas, and specifically because of my Rolodex, which shows how old I am. I know what a Rolodex is.
Yeah, but that's great, and that's exactly, the Rolodexes are key. Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm talking about. No idea. What is a Rolodex?
It'll be on Wikipedia.
Oh, okay.
And it may even show you a picture.
It's taxation like system or what?
Rolodex was a way of keeping track of your contacts. It was a company that made cards that could be stapled or taped or whatever to a big thing on your desk.
Cylinder, and you just turn it. I mean, it's like a dumb contact system, right?
It was it's the original contact manager.
Okay, the flip card. Yeah. Okay.
I think we should all go back to a Rolodex at some point, you know.
When I got hired at the New York Times and I showed up with the contact system I'd been using down here at the New Orleans Times-Picayune, I walked into my first meeting with the thing and my boss looks over at me and she looks back up at me and she looks down at my contact manager and daily planner and looks back up at me and just starts laughing. She goes, "Stephen, we're going to need to buy you an upgrade."
Oh, because it was your Rolodex was too small.
Yeah, it was just, it was fine for the Times-Picayune in New Orleans. It was not remotely close. She said that the number of meetings I was going to have to go to at the New York Times.
Oh, that's so funny. I love it.
You have to have meetings before you have the meetings, before you have the meetings, before you actually get around to setting up the meeting where you can make a decision.
That's so funny because I have the New York Times on here that I keep just like glancing over and watching what's going on.
The editor of the New York Times, Dean Baquet, he and I used to work together at the Times-Picayune down here in New Orleans. And when I got hired at the New York Times, he was like, you know, he was one of the folks who had to vet me. And he said, you know, you can't hire him. The Times-Picayune won't be able to publish. Steve is the only one who's figured out all the different computer systems. And, and the paper came out the day after I left. Nobody noticed.
Yeah. All right, guys, I need to sign off, but thank you so much. This was fantastic. You guys are doing an amazing job. So
thank you, April. And you know what helps us is when we have diversity in our group, when we have someone who comes from California, right? And who comes from Louisiana, and we are connecting people, and we are you know, we need more people to attend actually our meeting. I send emails to over 200 people, and then I wish that we have more attendance, but anyway.
You will have to think about that. Maybe there's some type of a